how in the black community you got viaducts, but in the white community, railroad tracks is low. And the reason why they got viaducts, in case something happened in the black community, they can call the National Guard and put an army tank in front of every viaduct and lock blacks in, put us under siege, right? And then you got these railroad tracks that lead straight to a penitentiary. Every black community is a railroad track that leads straight to Stavia, straight to Menard, straight to, they were showing us these systems and stuff, right? And they was like educating us and stuff. And so we would have some of their literature, and Bobby them notices that. And so that's when they met with Fred and they would say, hey man, stop giving our guys this literature because y'all believe in killing police. We ain't with that. We believe in community building, and the police is part of the community, right? And so he said, because if they get caught with y'all literature, they wouldn't know how to respond, and they could end up getting hurt. And like I say, Sears and Roebuck was their initial fiscal agent. And Martin Luther King moved to Chicago then on 16th and Millard. That's where he stayed at. And he didn't get a lot of support from people in Chicago, blacks in Chicago, because Mayor Daley had a lot of influence on blacks and the black politicians and the black preachers. And so Reverend Al Sampson, who's still alive today, got a church on 120-something, I think Indiana, somewhere around over there. He was like Martin Luther King's field person. So he met with the street gangs. And they had a meeting at Stone Temple Church right off of Douglas Boulevard in Millard.
What year was that?
That had to be like in '67. Okay. And that's the same year he made that great speech down at Soldier Field, right? And so they was in the meeting, they were just observing Martin Luther King because they was about the community. And Cubit, one of the original street enforcers for the vice lords, overheard one of King's followers say, I hope the minister don't hook up with these street thugs. And so he told Pep, and Pep said, well, we out of here. About 2/3 of that church left, and Martin Luther King, like, we need them young guys. And so he started meeting with them. And you can see pictures of King out in the streets on a platform and people standing in the streets while he was talking. That was on 16th Street in the heart of the Vice Lord, because he lived right there. And as he was building momentum, and because Vice Lords at that time were shutting constructions down, and they had a group called TRAG, Tenants' Rights Action Group. When landlords was illegally evicting blacks out their homes, the vice lord would put their stuff back in there and take the landlord to court. And they didn't have no losses. All theirs was victories. And King saw what they was doing. And so Bobby and them started saying, they building constructions in our community, but they not hiring black contractors. Because like I say, Bobby, he was a student of Marcus Garvey. He understood colonization, social disorganization, anomy. He knew these concepts. And so they organized to go shut down the University of Illinois Chicago when they was building it, right there on Harrison and Austin. They shut it down. And Jesse Jackson them was starting to come to Chicago, him and C.T. Vivian and Abernathy, and they was meeting with the labor union and was telling the labor union that they can stop the shutdown of those construction sites because they got an influence on these young brothers. But they didn't, right? And so the labor union said they would meet with Jesse Jackson them and didn't want to meet with Bobby them, because by that time they had formed LSD. Because Leonard Calloway, he was the first cousin of Bull, the founder of the Blackstone Rangers. Jeff Ford was little chief upon the Bull. And so that brought that relationship between the Vice Lords and the Stones, so they would go out south and help the Stones shut down construction site that they was expanding the University of Chicago. And see, by the disciples being over there in Inglewood, they joined forces with it, and that was formed LSD, Lord Stones and Disciples. And so they started shutting it down. And so now the labor union said they would meet with Jesse Jackson them, but not with LSD. And so they would, Jeff Ford and David Box them say, no, they ain't your problem. We the ones snatching motherfuckers off ladders and shutting us down and telling ain't no work today. And so the labor union found that out real quick, that Jesse them had no kind of influence on them guys. And so they was forced to meet with them. And they started working out some contracts like that. And that's why the community was behind these brothers back then. But Mayor Daley, he looked at how's these street thugs first getting these $1 million grants, opening up businesses right in my city. I don't know. And he's like having issues with the black politicians that's supposed to have some control. But what he found was that where the vice lords and the disciples and the stones were, they was putting people in office they chose to become their aldermen, to become their state representative. That's how they organized the community. So the community was behind these guys, man. People don't realize that. That's the power they had, right? And so that's how that happened. And then Mayor Daley declared a war on street gangs. First, he had about 13 gang intelligence units with the police department. And then he today it's called the Disciple Museum, but it used to be the Gang Intelligence Unit's headquarters. And that's where they organized out of there, right? And then he had over 300 gang intelligence units throughout the city now and declaring a war on street gangs. And that's when they assassinated Fred Hampton, December 4th, 1969, in his sleep. Then they trumped up a charge on Bobby Gore, sent him to prison for a murder that he didn't do. Then they trumped up one on Singali, because see, Bobby was the spokesman for the vice lords. Singali was the spokesman for the Stones, and OG was the spokesman for the disciples. And it was at the same time when Larry Hoover and David was merging together and formed Black Gangster Disciple Nation. So a lot of that was going on, just giving you some backdrop. All that was going on in Chicago at that time. Right?
They was out south, y'all was out west.
Yeah. They was South Side gangs. We was West Side gangs. But you had some brothers like Shorty Freeman, who come from the West Side. He was a Cobra from the West Side, moved to the South Side, and became a Gestapo. And they was Gestapos, and then they became the Disciples. And then you had Pony Soldier, and he was the older brother of Mickey Caldwell. They was Cobras on the West Side. And then they moved, and on the South Side, you had Egyptian Cobras on the South Side. And when they united with Jeff Ford, they became Cobra Stones. That's how that happened. A lot of them guys come from the West Side, moved to the South Side.
Okay. All right, so the Panthers was on the West Side at the same time the Vice Lords had went CVA Incorporated, right?
Yeah, Fred Hampton come from Maywood. Okay. He was, at that time, he was the youth leader of the NAACP. And then when he started learning about Bobby Seals and Huey P. Newton, they started the Black Panther Party in Oakland, California. And then they started having different chapters in different states. And so when they came to introduce the Panthers here, that's when Fred Hampton organized the Panther here. He always had that leadership, being a youth leader of the NAACP. And he started organizing the Black Panthers here. You had Bobby Rush. He was part of a street gang on the South Side in Woodlawn.
Bobby Rush, the blues singer?
No, Bobby Rush, Congressman Bobby Rush. Okay. And he met with Fred now, and so his whole mob became Black Panthers. So that gave birth to the Black Panthers on the South Side. And then by him being right there with Jeff Ford, they was trying to influence Jeff Ford them to become Panthers. But Jeff was saying, we're a nation of our own. If anything, y'all need to join us. You ever seen that movie, the Judas and the Black Messiah?
No.
Yeah, watch it. And there's a part in there where the Panthers met with the Crowns. That was really Jeff Ford and them. Yeah, that's who that really was, Jeff Ford and them, the Stones. Yeah.
Did y'all ever collab with the Panthers around that time?
Yeah, there was a lot of collaboration with the Panthers, right? That's why they assassinated Fred Hampton, because they saw he was collaborating. And see, Fred, he was an organizer. Fred, he believed in power belonged to the people. And what he mean by that, there's black power for black people, and there's yellow power for yellow people, and there's white power for white people. So you had a group called the Young Lords, like in Humboldt Park. These was Puerto Ricans, right? And they was fighting for their rights. And so there was a bunch of poor whites further north called the Young Patriots. They was radical, fighting for their rights because they was poor. And so what Fred did, he met with the Young Lords, Cha-Cha Hernandez then, who ran the Young Lords, and they formed what they call the Rainbow Coalition. That ain't Jesse Jackson concept. Fred them started that, the Rainbow Coalition. You know, the Young Patriots, the whites, the Young Lords, Puerto Ricans, and the Black Panthers, they became the Rainbow Coalition. So when they started moving to shut down things in the Puerto Rican neighborhood, the poor white people neighborhood, and then he was meeting with the Vice Lord, the Stones, and Disciples, all right? And so that what made Fred a threat is that they knew he was a mastermind of like getting Bobby them to start seeing a lot of things for what is colonialism, what is imperialism, because they was like black nationalist type groups and stuff. Now the first interaction came when Bobby them noticed a lot of young Vice Lords, my generation, we was getting hold to a lot of Panthers literature, because they had a black library on Cicero and Van Buren, and we would go in there to get out the snow and get out the snow during the winter time, hide in there like we was interested, but we really just trying to get out the cold. And them guys would be talking to us, and they was showing us maps and stuff, how in the black community you got viaducts, but in the white community, railroad tracks is low. And the reason why they got viaducts, in case something happened in the black community, they can call the National Guard and put an army tank in front of every viaduct and lock blacks in, put us under siege, right? And then you got these railroad tracks that lead straight to a penitentiary. Every black community is a railroad track that leads straight to Stavia, straight to Menard, straight to, they were showing us these systems and stuff, right? And they was like educating us and stuff. And so we would have some of their literature, and Bobby them notices that. And so that's when they met with Fred and them and say, hey man, stop giving our guys this literature because y'all believe in killing police. We ain't with that. We believe in community building, and the police is part of the community, right? And so he said, because if they get caught with y'all literature, they wouldn't know how to respond, and they could end up getting hurt, right? And so they came to a compromise, and that's when the Panthers saw that the Vice Lords were doing exactly what they was doing. They had something in common, so they kind of collaborated together.
You remember what year that interaction was?
That meeting was at the Better Boys Foundation somewhere around 1968.
Okay.